So I'd like now to turn to Tom Farrell for his weekly scratch building segment on his layout. Tom, welcome.
Thank you for the introduction, Jim, and thank you for having me again. This evening I have something a little unusual. I had a request. Some of you know the young modeler Sean Williams. He's building a On30 railroad called the Wandering Spruce. It's a beautiful layout, particularly for a first try. Looks like he's a master model railroader. He's gone around and asked some of us, quote, experienced modelers to build models and donate structures to his layout. And he saw my recent boat build for my layout. It was featured on the show, and he asked me to build a kit. So he mailed me the kit, a FOS scale, O-scale oyster kit. And of course, I couldn't leave well enough alone. I had to kit bash it. This is the art for art's sake picture. I just want to say what a neat program I found to take these photographs and turn them into artwork. I mean, that looks like a real painting. Anyway, that's a little side issue. So here's the FOS scale model. It's a laser cut kit. It's relatively simple and relatively inexpensive. It's $70, $69.95 or so. And it's constructed on this laser board, they call it. It's a very thin, it's almost like a masonite type material. So they give you basically 4 sheets of it, 2 in brown, 2 in white, and then a little bag of detail parts and some wood. So I did this kit in less than a week. This was the base. This is almost like a cardboard type material. This is the thickest laser board that comes with the kit. It's approximately, not quite a quarter of an inch, but some obscure thickness, but it goes together reasonably well. I used super glue. This is the reverse side. I put the deck on and I just used a very thin, first I put a thick super glue to hold it in place, and then I used a very thin super glue and glued the crap out of it. Just the materials aren't very, I guess flimsy is the word. It's not very robust, so I wanted to glue it so we wouldn't get any warpage. Here's the reverse side. They've put some detail, some laser etching into the reverse side of that. These are the first 2 sides. You can see they're approximately a 1/16 of an inch thick. I super glued these to the side. Next up, I put the front and rear pieces in the same way, and then these structural supports, which are really a nice little detail. They have this curvature to them, and they've got this penetration. With tweezers and super glue again, first I took a tape measure or a ruler, and I marked where they should go. You can see the ruler marks. And then I super glued those in place. And then the perimeter, they provided a wood, but I decided to use a 2x4 material of my own. This is a material or a spray that I've used before to make rust on a model. It's called American Accents Natural Rust. It's a 2-part process. You have a spray bomb. This is a very bright orange enamel of some kind. And then there's this acrylic accent, which is like a purplish rust. I just want to say, if you can find this stuff, you just can't miss simulating rust with this material. This is the base coat. So with the spray can, I sprayed everything orange, let it dry overnight. This is the base color. That went all directions. And there's what I do is I take a sponge, a very fine sponge, and I sponge on that acrylic material. You'd have to see this in person. It looks like a piece of metal when you're done. And there's really nothing to it. You just dab the sponge into the little paint can and you sponge it onto this bright orange base, and voila, you have a rusty hull. I mean, I did nothing to this hull later on. And then I started painting the deck. You'll see I had some issues. I'll keep moving on. And one of the themes of this is never give up on a model because, well, I'll show you. So this is the Wheelhouse. It's made out of extremely thin, probably a 32nd of an inch laser board. They have some, supposed to simulate wood. They don't provide this bracing. I just use a very fine 1/8 inch material to brace it. Otherwise, if you just glued the corners, I mean, it's all warped and everything. I guess you get, it's a very inexpensive kit. You can make it into, I made it into a very nice model, but I made a lot of additions to it. This is the Wheelhouse. These are base colors. So it's got the uglies right now, but yeah, I put it together. I've sanded everything flush, painted everything a base green. I placed this onto the model just to have a look at it, and the colors just weren't working for me. This thing has the uglies. My mission for Sean Williams was to make him a museum quality model, and it just wasn't happening with this color scheme. So I'll show you the additions. This is when I decided to start kit bashing the model. So the first thing I wanted to do was get that Wheelhouse the right color. So I took that green and I painted a white over it. And then using a couple different rust colors, I came up with this very weathered Wheelhouse. This is a very nice effect. Just by dry brushing. It's a dry brush technique. So you don't want too much paint on your brush, and you dab your brush into the paint, wipe it on a paper towel or a rag or a piece of paper, and then you apply it to the model. It's a layering process. It's almost as if you're creating a painting with depth, one color on top of another. This is their little engine cowling. This has some nice detail, laser cut detail on it. Again, they don't provide this wood. I don't know how they expect you to, if you just glue this 32nd of an inch material together, it's quite flimsy. I suppose it'd be okay, but I just braced the crap out of it. Next up was that deck that I wasn't happy with. So what I did is I took these inexpensive, I got these from Hobby Lobby. They're just a package of sticks, basically, very cheap. And with my graining tool, it's on a little X-Acto knife, I grained the material. Then using these three colors from Hunter line, blue gray, tie brown, and grayish, which is gray and brown, as I learned from somebody on the show here. And then with my chopper, I chop them up with three different colors into 8-foot pieces, which are 2 inches long in O scale. And then I glued them to the deck. And you can see this Wheelhouse sort of jumped ahead here, but I trimmed this Wheelhouse out in, that's a 2x6. Those are 2x4s, or I'm sorry, 1x6, 1x2 scale lumber. These are 2x4s going around this. The model's starting to come together. I painted the inside black. You can see that's still drying. Put a little guy in there. now that it's starting to shape up. And one of the messages this evening is don't give up on your model. I had that atrocious color early on for the deck, and that green, and it just looked like it just wasn't happening. You'll see as this model really develops, it just turns into a neat little model. I decided to add these castings here. They were too large, so this one had a third drawer. I cut it off with a razor saw. This was too long too. I cut it with a razor saw, and then I began painting it. I just reached for different colors off my paint supply and just paint them all random colors. They're not weathered at this point. This is just how they're looking. So there's a close-up. So I just picked yellow, blue, green. I hit it with a alcohol wash to tone it down a little bit. I think I went back and repainted this. These are all highlighted with silver, old silver it's called. This is still not finished. There's still, this has to be touched up here. I put a tin roof on this thing. There's a little side view. Again, I wanted the casting to be the length of the wheelhouse, and I didn't want this bench to be sticking away out here. These are out of focus, but this is just foam. I had to make a pile of oysters. I had to figure out how to do that. So I took some craft foam, which you stick flowers in, like at a craft store. I just carved this obtuse lump, and then I painted it. This is still wet here. I painted it with Elmer's glue, and I sprinkled 2 colors of ballast on there to simulate oysters. I mean, this is way up close, but if you're at a normal perceived eye contact with this, it looks like a pile of oysters. They're all over the place. And I went back and I had some old Floqual gloss material. I painted this to show that dirty water washing off the oysters. This is the crane that they provided. I mean, you have to build it. It's just 4x4s of scale wood and a string. And I actually had to ad-lib this. What they gave me didn't work, so I made this myself, these rollers. There's the finished model with the weathering, and I put some boards over the windows, and there's the exhaust for the engine, and there's the back. Of course, I named it the Rustic Buff, just for humor's sake. There's the exhaust. I mean, everything's supposed to look beat to hell. You know, it's all cracked and screwed up, and you know, it's a fishing boat, right? I put some plastic filler, Tester's model filler on here. Just was experimenting. This is actually a decal, and to my surprise, you could see the decal. So I thought, I wonder why that decal didn't dissolve into the background. So I added this plastic goop on here, then painted it rust colors. And again, we're at super magnification here, but you know, at a normal viewing distance, this really comes off nice. There's the front of the model. You can see the guy a little out of focus. I mean, look at that. That looks like rust, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And and that's a nice view of it. So you've got your tin roof, and that's approaching, you know, really what he was after, a museum quality model. And I added another board here. He told me to not make it too beat up, because I wanted it to make it look like a regular garbage scow. There it is. I placed it on my Salt Creek River Basin section of my model, the Shantytown section, just to see what it would look like. There you can see the highlights. I took a white dry brush and highlighted the bench, highlighted these tools. I put in this garbage can and a lid, and this white, you know, this thing's in salt water. So the idea was everything should be salt encrusted was the scheme here. And there it is in my my module or my section of my layout. And to be truthful, I like this model so much that I scratch built one myself, and I'll feature that next week. It's the one I scratch built. It's about 90% done. It's basically just like this, more or less, and I'll feature that in next week's program. But I thought this just this looked outstanding in my my little waterfront. And right after this photograph, I wrapped it and carefully packaged it, and I sent it to Sean out in California. So I live in Indiana, and it arrived intact. He said, "Boy, you pack them as well as you build them." And this is where it's going to, I mean, this is all unfinished, but this is where it's going to go on his layout. There's his oyster shanty. There's his dock. There's my boat, his boat now. And it's nice. He's going to put Al Judy contributed a model. I contributed a model. I'm not sure how many people have, but it's a neat concept to get these, quote, infamous modelers within On30 to make contributions to Sean Williams' Wandering Spruce, which is a gorgeous layout. This guy, you'd think he's been modeling way beyond his years. And that's it for this evening. Any questions?
I could see that coming as you were talking about it.
I didn't want to give it up.
I just knew you were going to build number 2.
I did, and it's after the show, the after hours, I'll show everybody it. But I'm going to feature it next week.
Hey, Tom, this is Bob Geldmacher. What's the name of the program that you use to simulate the drawing?
You want me to give away my secret?
Yes, I do.
I'll have to check my applications here. Let me think. It's called, let me look here. Pick Sketch, PIC capital SKETCH. Pick Sketch. Of course, I use a Mac, so.
And that American accent rust really looks interesting. I have a couple of old moguls that I really want to rust up and put in a on a sidetrack, and that might be just the thing that I need. So thanks for that.
Yeah, it would be perfect for that. It would. It's a great. You can't fail with it. It's just does a spectacular job.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
All right.
Anybody else have any questions for Tom?
Next week will be a scratch built version of the same, more or less the same thing. All right.
I can't wait to see it. That's great.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Tom.